On Monday, July 2nd, 1888, the Gorman family matriarch Hannah, then in her early 80s, died at her son and daughter-in-law's home on High Street in Salem. Her passing marked a long life filled with hardship and perseverance. The fact that she died in the home of her family is remarkable, as the reunification came despite being separated by enslavement, a continent, and decades. Hannah Gorman was likely born in Tennessee in about 1808. Like many people who had suffered enslavement, the early details of her life are murky and poorly documented. By the birth of her two known children, Hiram and Eliza, in the 1830s, she was living in Missouri. It is unclear if the whole family were living together during Hiram and Eliza's childhoods, but one thing is clear. When Hannah and daughter Eliza embarked on the Oregon Trail in 1844, a continent's worth of distance was put between them and Hiram, then about 11 years old. Hannah and Eliza were some of the earliest travelers on the Oregon Trail, coming to Oregon as part of a wagon train captained by Major John Thorpe. Hannah's obituary lists Thorpe as her enslaver, although there is at least one Thorpe family tradition that claims she was enslaved by the family of Thorpe's daughter-in-law. The widowed Major Thorpe and his family homesteaded on 320 acres in the Wigridge area of Polk County, Oregon, just southeast of Independence. Hannah and Eliza are enumerated with the family in the 1850 U.S. federal census, 6 years after their arrival in Oregon, and amidst an ever-changing series of laws that sought to outlaw slavery, force expulsion of former slaves with the penalty of whipping or hard labor for noncompliance, and prevent black individuals from entering the area. By 1856, Hannah and Eliza had moved to Corvallis, where they found financial independence in taking in laundry and sewing. Within a year, they had begun purchasing real estate lots, in spite of an Oregon constitutional provision that prohibited black individuals from owning property in the territory. Their house, while modified, still stands today in Corvallis and was recently listed on the National Register of Historic Places. A single advertisement in a Salem-based paper indicates that Eliza may have tried to expand her business to the capital city, and gives a bit of insight into her specialities, including women's wear and clothing for children. Meanwhile, back in Missouri, Hannah's son Hiram was caught up in national events. He served as a teamster, or wagon driver, attached to Union forces during the Civil War, and his obituary states he was witness to the Battle of Wilson's Creek outside of Springfield, Missouri. Residing in a border state, Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation would not have granted Hiram or his family freedom from slavery. It would take an act of the Missouri legislature in 1865 to do that. After the war, Hiram, his wife Georgia Ann, and their young son George, who was also confusingly known as Frank and sometimes Mose, packed up and moved to a ranch in Montana, where two more children were born, daughter Emma and son William, also known as Bud. Hiram's work as a teamster probably gave him quite a bit of experience working with horses and other livestock, making him very well qualified for ranch life. By the 1870 census, the family had settled in the Prickly Pear Valley outside of Helena, and were going by the surname Blevins, potentially another clue into how slavery may have impacted their lives. This is where the story takes a bit of a Hollywood-worthy dramatic turn. Somehow, Hiram and his family make the decision to move to Salem. Neither Hannah nor Hiram ever learned to read or write. How, after nearly 30 years and with limited communication options and name changes, was that decision made? Did he remember his mother's departure for the far-off Oregon country? Did she find a way to get letters of inquiry back home to Missouri and then miraculously forwarded to Montana? Was the move intentional or serendipitous? We may never know. Can you imagine the reunion, though? Sadly, the event was one member short, as Hannah's daughter and Hiram's sister Eliza died in 1869 at the tender age of 30, before the reunion could take place. After Eliza's death, Hannah moved in with the Wilbur family in Portland, eventually returning back to Corvallis. Soon after settling in Salem, Hiram began working for the Oregon Statesman newspaper, helping to operate their steam press, which at the time was without a steam engine to provide power. For over a decade, Hiram did the work of a steam engine, running the big press in the evenings to churn out editions for the morning paper. One contemporary news report gave an example of Hiram's physical prowess, describing the way he lifted a 400-pound barrel of printer's ink, playfully in his left hand, and carried it up the stairs. And you, dear reader, may now be reading the characters made with the assistance of the contents of this same barrel. When the Oregon Statesman finally replaced their press's steam engine, Hiram continued on in a maintenance capacity at the paper, doing odd jobs like cleaning the stove and counting out editions for the paper boys to take on their routes. Hiram and Georgia Ann bought property in what is now Salem's Riverfront Park. Newspaper reports describe the greenness of Hiram's thumb as well, telling of pea stalks of incredible sizes and new varieties of potatoes and tobacco cultivated in his garden. Newspaper and archival records also show glimpses of the Gorman children's involvement in the Salem community. Frank was a member of the Tiger Engine Company volunteer fire department. Emma sang in community concerts, and William was well known as quite the prankster. There is frustratingly little information about Georgia Ann, although in 1882 she purchases a house on High Street. Hiram's name is conspicuously missing from the deed. It was in this house that Matriarch Hannah would spend her last days. Hiram died just a few weeks after his mother. His obituary read that he was universally liked for his unfailing good nature and for his large-hearted generosity. His acts of kindness were innumerable. After Hiram's death, Georgia Ann and her children continued to live in Salem for almost another decade. They were charter members of and helped found the St. Paul's AME Church. Daughter Emma married Henry E. Shepherd at her mother's home and would eventually move into the house one door to the south on High Street. It was likely here that they welcomed a baby girl, Nita Medora, in 1890. By 1896, most of the family had relocated to Wyandotte County, Kansas. We found no evidence yet of Frank or William having any children, but Emma would marry again and have 2 more daughters. She eventually moved back to the Pacific Northwest and settled in the Seattle area, where Hannah's descendants, including 3 great-grandchildren and 8 great-great-grandchildren, grew up. Numbering among her descendants was Jesse Raymond Glover, a martial artist who trained with Bruce Lee. Outside of newspaper and archival records, there are very few tangible mementos of the Gorman family's time in Salem and Oregon. Even the few photographs and artifacts we have found have doubtable attributions. There is still much we don't know and may never know about the family's history. This walking tour seeks to connect with physical spaces the family occupied during their time in Salem, as an opportunity to remember them and honor their story and struggles.